Really am. We're going to be joined by Maggie Menegee, who's the executive director of ALIVE, which stands for Alternatives to Living in Violent Environments. And after this, or if you want to learn more, you can visit alivestl.org. They also have a link for donations if you want to support their efforts. And let me see if I can get Maggie live on here. Where are you, Maggie? Manage participants. There we go. All right. So we're going to ask Maggie to start her video, and I'm unmuting her. And as soon as she's here, she's going to say hello. Hi, Maggie.
Hi. There we go.
Yes. Hi, how are you?
Good. Am I still in view? Because I have a hard time navigating this.
You are in view. Yeah, just look at the camera as best you can. That helps to focus on your camera instead of yourself. It's really hard. Yeah, we want to look at ourselves. Yeah, or the other person speaking. So thanks so much for being here. You know, these are serious times. A lot of things are changing in our world. What would you like to tell us about ALIVE?
Okay, well, thank you for giving me this opportunity, because it is important that anyone who needs our services does have knowledge about us. But ALIVE has been around now for 35 years. So it's an organization that's been in the community a long time. And from the very beginning, it has been there to provide temporary shelter services for anyone who has been experiencing intimate partner violence, as well as providing counseling. And that is the same as we do today. That's how it started all those years ago, and it still provides those same services today. It's expanded to include not only counseling for adults, but in the last maybe about 12 years, we've also provided counseling services for children who witness domestic violence. And that's really a critical piece, because children are in a home where things are happening, and they're experiencing that trauma as well. So we do have this program.
Okay, let me stop you for just a second. I just wanted to say, I did not realize that you guys had been around this long. I've become aware of you pretty recently, so I thank you for the work that you've been doing all this time. I know this is not easy work. Can you tell us a little bit about how many people right now you're serving on a daily basis or a weekly basis, and how long folks come to stay with you?
Okay, lots of different numbers here. So currently in the shelter services we can have we did have to lower the number that we can provide, because being able to keep food has been an issue. Because we're feeding individuals. First of all, our temporary shelter services were set up to house individuals in undisclosed locations when traditional shelters are full. So places that are traditional brick and mortar shelters, when they're full, then we can take somebody and put them in a safe place. But then we also need to provide food and everything that they need in that place that we're putting them. They're individual motels. Mm-hmm. Currently, we're serving about 10 families in the St. Louis area, and between 3 and 5 more out in the Franklin County area. But that's 10 individuals who might have children. Then that becomes about 40 people that you're feeding, or 30 to 40 in St. Louis, as well as in Franklin County. Then you're feeding maybe 15. So that's where the issue of food comes in, trying to make sure that we have food to feed individuals.
And so you're saying that the COVID-19 virus has made it more difficult to purchase and deliver food?
We used to have, well, we still do, we have an account where we had food delivered in through Walmart or through Sam's. Well, that's not as accessible as it used to be. We can order food, and maybe a week or so later, we might get a delivery of food. Because a lot of individuals are doing that now, where they weren't before. We weren't competing with that. And then going into the grocery store, initially the shelves were pretty empty when this all took place, and people panicked, as it's nature. I mean, people had a great fear, and so they went into the stores and they bought a lot of things that maybe they didn't necessarily need at that time. As stores have become restocked, it's been a little bit easier, but it means that we're just purchasing food in a different capacity. We've got to go back into the stores and do our shopping and everything, and then take, bring food in here. It has to be non-perishable food as well. The motels that we're putting someone in has a refrigerator and a microwave. So imagine, how are you going to feed your kids something that you can open up and put into a microwave and heat up and then serve to that, for them to eat.
Right. And how long do you usually have to house folks for?
Not well, in normal circumstances, it would be about 5 days, which would allow them time for us to safety plan and help them find other long-term placement. Traditional shelters are the safer place to be because they can stay up to 90 days. St. Martha's Hall is a great example. You can, or the Women's Safe House in the city, or Kathy J. Wyman. Someone moving into that environment can stay up to 90 days. They're also experiencing challenges now because of the social distancing issues that they're facing, and they're full. So finding somewhere to send someone in a safe way is more challenging. We might be sending somebody out of state over to Illinois, Kansas,
Right.
Other locations.
More expensive. It also becomes more expensive, not more complicated, more expensive. And I imagine getting out of one of these situations is already difficult enough for these women and these children.
It is extremely challenging now with the shelter in place. You are now putting people that are under the power and control of an abuser in a household where they may not have access to a cell phone to be able to call out and talk about what's going on for them. They're fearful of the abuser. They're fearful of the virus. So they are really in a very dangerous situation. And so right now our calls are not coming in to the number that we normally would. This time of year, we usually are always constantly full and our phone is ringing off the hook. But they can't get to the phone to call us.
They can't get time by themselves when they're safe to make a call.
Place. We do, however, have a chat line, and people can access that through our website, which is a way that someone can go, if they can get to a computer and they can go on a chat line, they can send us a message and we can, reach back and forth with them through that mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a challenge.
Yeah.
It is a challenge right now. So normally they would stay up to 5 days, but we might have somebody in longer because we're not going to just put them out on the street. We're going to keep them safe until we can help safety plan with that individual and put them in a safe place on a long-term basis.
Great. It's such important work. There are so many women who are trapped in abusive situations. I myself, in my first marriage, was in I'd say an unstable position. It had not reached a time when it was violent or I felt on a daily basis in danger, but I could see things could get out of hand. And, it's tough to take yourself out of that situation. It's hard to imagine yourself free. It's hard to imagine yourself starting over. There are so many challenges, especially these women who have children. I didn't have a child at that time. So, it's a big sacrifice as well. You're basically putting your faith in other people who have probably let you down. Much of the time, more recently, you probably don't even trust people very much. So it's an interesting and very, very serious topic. And I thank you for the work that you're doing. Where do you usually get the funding to support this?
All right. So we have federal and state grants, foundations, also different local foundations. And then we do a lot of fundraising events, which that right now is non-existent because we had to reschedule things that we were going to be having in March because of social distancing. Obviously, we want to keep people safe. We don't want them coming out when they're not supposed to. So those events have been postponed into the fall and all the way into next year. Mm-hmm. I hope that by the fall things have changed and that we're all in a situation where we can come out safely and be healthy. And so that makes a difference, because those are operational funds that help pay the rent and the very core things that you need that grants are not going to cover. The other thing, when we were talking about numbers, all of our counseling services are still going on. They're just going on by telehealth. So the adult counseling is still happening on a daily basis, as well as the children's counseling is still happening. It's a little more challenging for children because we have a lot of children that are under like the ages of 8. And while they like to play with video games and stuff, not so much fun to talk to somebody on a,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, in that kind of venue and everything. But and usually the therapist, they can use sand art, they can use art therapy and music therapy and other techniques that work very well in working with children. That doesn't lend well into this telehealth world that we're in right now, but we're still doing it. We're going forward. We're still providing those critical services for children. Adults, it's much easier. As you and I are talking, you get to see the person, you can talk to them, and they can talk and process through their feelings. So it works really well and it's also even safer for an adult. Sometimes we might use this format for adults going forward and they can't get transportation.
Right.
So transportation is an obstacle. A therapist can still provide that, needed services without the person having transportation. So it's really well for the adults. It's just not the best situation.
Not the best for the kids. Yeah, I think there are some good outcomes of the situation and some upsides. They may be only silver linings, but at least they're there. We are learning to use our technology to closer to its fuller potential and to be able to connect and help people. Are there any sort of final words you'd like to share about what you do, what other shelters do, the need that's out there, and also where does the state play any role, and is there anything that coming out of maybe as we are reopening the state, whenever that happens or it's safe to happen, and moving forward, is there anything that the state can do for you more than they've been doing, or where is the role of the state possibly?
Well, the state, again, we get funding sources through the state. They have been working with agencies and certainly with the telehealth and everything, and different funding sources that we've changed our units of service and everything to reflect a different category that we didn't have before because we didn't need it. And they recognize that it's a challenge. They're looking at the potential of emergency funds. Shelters, the traditional shelters that house people in-house, and now they're afraid because of social distancing, might be utilizing motels where they didn't have funding to do that before. That is where our funding is. We're using a lot more transportation funds because, again, trying to get people into safe environments, they're not in our area. So emergency funding sources are something that they're looking at having accessible due to the changes that we're all experiencing in providing our services. And that's good.
That's good.
Looking at, like you said, technology. I mean, we're all learning this. I am especially learning all of this in terms of using different technological equipment and things that are different. And did you have access to all of these things before? So they may open up funding in technology resources too, because again, we don't know that this is going to end come May 15th or May 30th. We have to look at what are we going to do in the long term so we can continue to provide the critical services. So they are looking at that. And so that's a real positive thing coming from our state.
Good.
In terms of looking at how they can better provide services and funding in different categories that we didn't have before. And we are still going to continue to do safety planning. I mean, that is the critical piece. We have the 24-hour crisis hotline, and that hotline, when somebody calls that hotline, they're talking to a skilled professional who is trained in crisis intervention, who's talking to them and helping them process through what's going on, whether they need medical care, whether they need transportation, whether they do need to go into shelter services, whatever their needs are, we're going to be there to be supportive. And that happens every day of the year. Doesn't matter.
Well, I thank you for what you're doing and the way you're helping these families. And I also wanted to say technologically, one thing that I hope that we will do is to support this technology better, more in our state. We need to invest in our internet infrastructure, our ability to connect. There are a lot of folks in rural areas who do not have strong internet. That's holding them back from starting businesses, quite frankly. But even, I think it's just past Ellisville and Wildwood, they don't have the same kind of internet that I have here in Baldwin.
Out there.
Yeah. And so working from home is very difficult for those folks. And so I really hope that since your business, most businesses are going to be doing more, I hope that we will invest in our infrastructure to support the communication that you've been able to make with your clients. And well, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to put the slate up again with the website at the end. I want to let everybody else know for tomorrow, we're going to have Jessica from Martha's Hall come on, and she's going to give a little bit different, a different part of this conversation, more of sort of the victim experience in this topic. So please join us tomorrow for to hear from Jessica. Thanks so much for coming, Maggie. I'm going to cut your video so that hopefully we can show the screen, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot, everybody.